Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Andrew Michaels, and you have entered the White Room. Now, you might hear a little bit of reverberation in my voice because I haven't got my system for recording sound down yet properly. This is strictly a test. But tonight, we're going to work on some fun sounds. And we're going to talk about a few things. I feel like Dr. No with my blue hand. One glove. I needed a place to put my time travel equipment so it would be easier for me to regulate my time continuum time bubbles. So I have a shelf over here with all my rogues gallery of characters. And over here I have my equipment, all my switches and my electronics. And hopefully this white room will become an important part of my attempts to protect the world from the supernatural and from evil beyond the stars. Liking, but I like to fill requests when I can. Remember, the White Room is a new area, so there's a lot of testing going on in the White Room. We're not sure how everything is going to work. And Ian Fleming is a great guy, wonderful author. He hated Roald Dahl. Well, it was more professional hatred than personal hatred. I think that's important to make a distinction. But spies are like that. everybody had the hots for Julia Childs. Oh, Julia. Julia Childs was just a hot tamale. She won every man through his palate. I think women forget sometimes the quickest way to win over a man is not through your curvaceous prizes, but to truly win a man's heart. You win him through the stomach. Julia knew just how to push those buttons. She was a doll. I was a married man when I met Julia, and I would technically say we did not cheat on our spouses, but it was World War II, and we were both spies for our government. Of course, she only had eyes for Roald back then, Roald Dahl. I was so happy he fell in love with that Hollywood actress. It was like, oh, thank God, we finally got Roald to leave us alone. You couldn't keep your wife in a chair with Roald Dahl in the room. It was like he wasn't even a popular child author then. But if he walked in a room, the women would quit looking at me. They would quit talking to Ian Fleming. I'm talking 007, Ian Fleming. They would quit talking to, Audie Murphy. Jimmy Stewart didn't even exist. And he was still an officer in the military at the time. They wanted to talk to Roald Dahl, that Navy boy, that man from the RAF. I said Navy boy, but he was actually RAF, Royal Air Force. Oh, he was so suave. And Roald Dahl stole a woman from Gary Cooper in his prime. I mean, he's writing about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Gary Cooper can't compete with that. When you figure it out, you let me know. I mean, what the... Yippee. I mean, his famous line in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Grandpa goes, yippee. That's what they wanted. That's what the women wanted. Roald Dahl, sex machine. I mean, his wife was a beautiful woman. I mean, she really was. She was a sweetheart. She'd always cook, do her best to make you feel at home. Cosmopolitans for everyone. She was a gracious hostess, beautiful woman. She was too good for Roll, I'll tell you that. Yeah, she was a good mother, though. I will give her that. But I mean, Gary Cooper, I remember being at Roll's house when Gary Cooper called. I could kill the guy, just as soon as sit and look at him in the same room, but, we had to check our weapons at the door. He would never let us in there unless somebody frisked us down first. And I only packed like a 38 at the time, a policeman's revolver. And I'm at the house, and Gary Cooper calls, and he's like, basket case. He's half in the bag. Jimmy Stewart's telling him to let it go, and, it ain't going to happen. And he's over there throwing up on Jimmy Stewart's carpet. Jimmy had a nice wife, and if you could imagine, Gary Cooper coming over, and you got like a wife and young kids. This is after the war. This is like, say, 47, 48. And Gary Cooper's throwing up on your foyer, all over your kids' school shoes, crying about Roald Dahl stealing his wife or his girlfriend. And he's married. You know, he's got a wife and kids. And, you know, Jimmy's like, you know, why are you doing this in my house? You know, you know, Jimmy's wife's looking at him like, what really went on over in Europe when you were flying those bombers, Jimmy? You know, like, what were you and Gary and the rest of the boys doing? You know, boys will be boys, huh? And that didn't cut it with the women back then. You know, that, oh, boys will be boys. Well, that didn't hold a lot of weight with Jimmy's wife. I'll tell you that. Wonderful lady. She made the best chicken and dumplings I ever had. I'm telling you. We used to sit around and try and figure out how Jimmy Stewart was so skinny when he had a wife that could cook like that. It boggles the mind, you know. Guy should have weighed 400 pounds. But I digress. I don't even know what I was talking about. Well, anyway, Ian Fleming had this thing for Julia Childs. We all did. She was so good at cooking. Like, I really don't like French food, but she knew how to cook French food. She was the chef's chef. Do you know what I'm saying? She walked in a room and commanded authority amongst some of the greatest chefs of the 20th century. And they respected her for her diligence and her dedication to the art. And I'm not joking, Julia was incredible back then. Wow. That woman she could dance. Most people don't know that. But Julia could dance. She could jitterbug. I'm telling you. I remember when she met her husband. And he was a real bastard. I mean, this man would kill a guy with his bare hands. No gun, no knife, no garrote. Didn't use a sap, club, nothing. This guy would come up on somebody and, I mean, he knew jujitsu. And he would kill a guy with his bare hands faster than you could if you had a 45 Colt revolver, or Colt 45 automatic. I mean, he could drop a guy like in a second. And he meets Julia in this bar over in, I think it was Singapore. And believe me, it was dicey. It was a dicey situation, to say the least. We were totally not in our element. Let me think of. Let's see. Ian Fleming was there. Julia's husband, future husband. I was there. Some of the guys from the Rangers were there that were going to go up into the Singapore jungle that spring, and things got out of hand. You know, whiskey. I don't drink whiskey. I was drinking warm beer that must have sat on a heat register. I'm ready to throw up, and okay, this fight breaks out with these guys, and you know they didn't like us there to begin with, talking to the ladies, and Julia jumps up and, like, you know, grabs this guy, you know, future husband, twists him around, and starts jitterbugging to some crazy music, you know, and everybody's looking at them like, you know, who's this woman, you know, shaking her tail feather, and next thing you know, the fight ends, and everybody's dancing, you know, Everybody's having a good time, you know. We're doing the rumba, we're doing some salsa, you know. And Julia could do. Julia, I mean, she could dance. She had these young girls like begging her in this bar to teach them her moves. And all Julia wanted to do was get, you know, him back to the Quonset hut, you know, where her radio equipment was. She was a radio spy operator back then. Most people don't even know she was a spy. And you know, she's like, "Oh, come back to my hot plate, and I'll cook you some omelet, and you know, I'll put together an omelet with some, you know, some mushrooms and, you know, some spices, and, you know, we'll get some." And we're all looking at like, what the hell's going on here? We wanted to fight, you know, we wanted to beat the hell out of these locals. You know, we were trying to impress the women, and Julia's, you know, running off with this guy who we're supposed to show a good time to. "Oh, come back to my hut. I'll show you some fun things. You know, I'll cook you some. I got some ham." And we're in Singapore, in the middle of the war, and she's got this ham. "I sliced it thin off of, you know, the loin," and we're all like, "Who the fuck has ham? It ain't out of a can." She's got fresh ham and snails and freaking mushrooms. Who the hell has? We're eating out of a can every night down at the PX, and here's Julia cooking this guy, you know, chanterelles and mushrooms and all this crap, and cooking with wine. "I got a little red wine. I'll spill some wine in your omelet. You know, you have to have a little gusto. You know, put a little bit of flavor, a little bit of fat in there, a little bit of butter." We haven't even seen real butter. We used to get this butter. It was oleo. I don't know if you know what oleo is, but oleo was this white block of shit that they called butter that the government sent you. And you had to get there's a little vial of food coloring. It looked like melted butter. And you spilled it on this block of lard shit, for a better word. And you stirred it in to make the oleo, the lard, basically. Not butter. You stirred it and it looked like butter. It had the color and consistency of butter, but it tastes like animal fat or lard. It was like a depression food that the government was pushing off on us during the war. And here's Julia going, you know, "I've got some fresh goat cheese and butter and crackers I made this morning." And we're thinking, how in the hell are you making crackers in the middle of this freaking jungle? Where are you getting a dry ass cracker in the middle of the Singapore jungle in 1944? And sure as shit, she had a little cheese plate. I mean, this guy, he went over to her hut, and we didn't see them for 3 days. You know, I'm just saying. I mean, we didn't see him for 3 days. I'm not alluding to anything. I'll be a gentleman, but he came out for air one time, smoked a cigarette, and he looked like he'd been through, you know, D-Day. So we didn't see him after that. And then he hurt his hip and he was on crutches the rest of his life. So I don't know what that was about. But I mean, Julia was a great girl. Don't get me wrong. She was feisty. Something about a woman that can cook. But Ian Fleming never got over that. I know it's hard to, well, just leave it alone. I hope you enjoyed meeting me in the White Room. If there's other requests you'd like me to do, like tonight's request for a session with a rubber glove, if you'd like me to do something, please write in. I do enjoy all of your requests, and I do enjoy all of your comments. Please don't forget to share the White Room with your friends so that we can bring more adventures in time forward for all of you to enjoy. Until we meet again.